Hello again, guys. What's up? Welcome back to the journey of writing C# programs. So far, we have focused on the basic concepts in C#. Now let's start learning how to write business logic. We will start with a very commonly used feature in the programming, called loops. First of all, let's understand what the essence of a loop in the programming are, and how do the loops work. Why do we even need loops? Suppose you have to perform some actions repeatedly. How do you do this in the code? Simplest way is to write the same statements again and again, n number of times. But this will just make a lengthy repeated code, which is not a good practice. Further, we don't have any control over how many times the statements are executed, if we want to change the number of times, in the runtime. So, the loops come to help the developer in such situations. Loops are basically the statements, which enclose a block of statements which are to be executed repeatedly. Let's get introduced to the essence of a loop in programming. This applies to the C# language, and many other languages have the similar features too. First of all, a variable, say loop control variable. This variable starts with certain value and changes the value each time loop is executed. It basically helps us track how many times the loop is executed. Let's call this essence, E1. The next essence is a condition, or a predicate. This condition is evaluated each time, before or after the execution of the loop. This helps us decide when to exit from the loop. Let's call this essence, E2. Next essence is a statement, which is executed to change the value of the loop control variable. In absence of such statement, the loop would execute infinitely. Let's call this essence, E3. The last, but not the least, essence of a loop is a block of statements, which are required to be executed repeatedly. Let's call this essence as E4. Now based on how these E1, E2, E3 and E4 are arranged, there are two types of popular loop statements. For loop, and while loop. Most of the time, you can write a block of statements in either of them. They do the same work. Let's turn to the for loop. In a for loop, we use a for statement. The for statement, in parenthesis, takes three arguments, which are basically the first three essence we discussed. All three arguments are terminated with a semicolon, just like statements are. Actually, only first two arguments are terminated with semicolon. You are allowed to declare a variable, the loop control variable, as the first argument. People generally use the variable name I. So, int I equal to some value, say 1. The next argument is the condition, which must evaluate to either true or false. The for loop will execute as long as the condition evaluates to true. Suppose, we put the condition as, I is less than or equal to 10. Finally, the third argument is used to change the value of I. You can technically write any executable statement here. But logically, you have to write such a statement that, the value of I should change so that eventually the condition in second argument should evaluate to false, and program exits the for loop. And finally, the block of statements which are required to be executed repeatedly, is written inside braces. If it is just a single statement, then braces are optional. You can still write a single statement inside braces. And I would recommend you always write, even a single statement also, inside braces. Because, braces clearly indicate the scope of the loop. And in future, if you want to add another line or more lines in the loop, you already have the braces to enclose them. Now, let's write this code in our program in the Visual Studio, and see how it goes. Let's write to the console, the start of loop, the value of loop control variable, and the end of loop, as three statements inside the for loop. And let's write to console that loop exited when program exits the loop. And here is the output of the program. The block of statements inside the for loop are executed top to bottom, as long as the condition, I is less than or equal to 10, is true. as soon as I equals 11, the program exited the for loop. Now, let's turn to the while loop. A while loop differs from a for loop in how the essence of a loop are arranged. Otherwise, the purpose of a while loop is the same as that of for loop, that is, to execute a block of code repeatedly as long as some condition is true. So this is how the essence are arranged. The loop control variable is declared before the while statement. The while statement takes only one parameter, which is the condition or predicate, which must evaluate to either true or false. The third essence, which is the statement that changes the value of loop control variable, is present inside the loop, along with the block of statements. Notice how the arrangement of E1, E2, and E3 is changed with respect to the for loop. Let's write the same code we wrote for the for loop, in the form of while loop. And when we run the program, it gives the same output. The value of I is printed to the console from 1 through 10. And when I equals 11, the loop exits. This is essentially the same what was done by for loop. It is possible to run any loop infinitely. However, you must ensure that infinite loop performs some sensible task, and does not indefinitely hang the application. Usually, an infinite loop is not used in the main thread, or the UI thread. It is generally used in some background thread, or background worker. Let's see how a loop can be run forever. In case of a while loop, the loop executes as long as the predicate or condition is evaluated to true. So, you can simply write the Boolean value true in parenthesis of the while statement. A while true loop will execute forever. In case of a for loop, you can keep all the three arguments of the for statement as blank. So, for, semicolon, semicolon. And this is similar to while true. It will run forever. There is no need to declare the loop control variable. I hope now the for loop and while loop are clear to you guys. Try to write some code and experiment with the loops. And I will see you guys in the next video, where we will discuss how to cheat the order of execution inside the loop. I mean, how to skip the block of statements, and how to break out of a loop at any time. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the .NET Study Room if you have not already. And do not forget to like and share the video. This will really help the channel grow. Thank you again.